Elise Morgan sat alone at Bellini's, fork suspended midair, her appetite vanishing the instant she spotted them. Across the dimly lit restaurant, partially obscured by a decorative pillar, her husband David leaned in close to a woman Elise had never seen before. The woman laughed, tilting her head back to reveal an elegant neck adorned with a delicate gold necklace. David's hand rested on hers, his thumb tracing small circles on her skin, the same intimate gesture he had once reserved for Elise. 13 years of marriage crystallized into this single, shattering moment. The waiter approached. "Is everything all right with your risotto, ma'am?" Elise looked down at her barely touched meal, suddenly aware of the ambient noise rushing back. Clinking glasses, muted conversations, soft piano music. "Yes," she replied, her voice steady despite the tremor she felt inside. "I'd like the check, please." She didn't make a scene. Didn't walk over and throw water in their faces or deliver a dramatic speech. Instead, Elise paid her bill, left a generous tip, and walked out with her dignity intact, neither of them noticing her departure. In her car, she sat motionless, hands gripping the steering wheel. Her reflection in the rearview mirror revealed a woman she barely recognized, someone whose life had just been cleaved in two, before this moment and after. "So this is what it feels like," she whispered to herself. She started the engine and drove home, her mind already shifting from shock to calculation. Their modernist home in Silver Lake, with its clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows, had been David's pride, a physical manifestation of his success as an architect. Tonight, its emptiness felt appropriate as Elise moved through the spaces they once shared. She poured herself a glass of Cabernet and carried it to their home office. David's meticulously organized desk stood in stark contrast to the chaos unfolding in their marriage. Elise sat down and opened her laptop. 3 hours and another glass of wine later, she had a name: Vanessa Chen. The woman from the restaurant wasn't hard to find once Elise had access to David's work calendar. VC appeared with suspicious frequency over the past 4 months. From there, LinkedIn confirmed Vanessa worked at the marketing firm handling David's latest commercial project. Instagram filled in the personal details: 34 years old, fitness enthusiast, art collector, and married. Vanessa's profile showed occasional photos with a man identified as Ryan Chen artist, her husband of 5 years. His feed revealed more. Ryan Chen, up-and-coming mixed media artist, recently featured in several galleries, thoughtful eyes behind stylish glasses. Elise felt a curious connection to this stranger who, like her, was being betrayed without his knowledge. "What would you do if you knew Ryan?" she murmured, studying his image. She closed the laptop and leaned back, sipping her wine. The humiliation of being cheated on was one thing, but something deeper gnawed at her: the stolen time, the elaborate deception, the realization that the life she believed she had was partly fiction. Conventional wisdom said to confront David or to leave silently. But neither felt right to Elise, the strategist. In her, the same mind that had made her one of the most successful management consultants in the city was formulating an alternative approach. She took out her phone and set a reminder. Gallery opening, Friday, 8 p.m. Ryan Chen adjusted a small spotlight, angling it to better illuminate his newest piece: a fragmented portrait constructed from broken mirrors, circuit boards, and antique watch parts. The gallery buzzed with pre-opening activity as staff made final preparations for tonight's exhibition. "Is the lighting too harsh?" he asked the curator, second-guessing himself as he always did before a show. "It's perfect, Ryan," Judith replied. "Stop fiddling and get ready. Doors open in an hour." Ryan nodded, though his anxiety remained. This show represented a significant step in his career, a solo exhibition at a respected gallery that could establish him beyond the emerging artist category. Yet his mind kept drifting to Vanessa and her increasingly transparent excuses for late nights and weekend absences. Just work stuff. "You know how it gets," she'd say, kissing him quickly before disappearing into their bathroom to shower immediately upon returning home. He did know how it got, but he also knew the scent of another man's cologne. Elise arrived at the gallery 30 minutes after the opening began, dressed in a simple black dress that conveyed understated elegance. She moved purposefully through the space, pausing to study Ryan's work with genuine interest. His art spoke of fractured perceptions and hidden connections, ironically appropriate given the circumstances. She spotted him across the room, engaged in conversation with two older patrons. In person, he had a gentle presence that his online photos hadn't captured, tall and lean with expressive hands that moved as he spoke about his work. Elise positioned herself near a striking installation and waited until Ryan was momentarily alone before approaching. "The way you've integrated mechanical elements with organic forms is fascinating," she said, gesturing to the piece. "It feels like a commentary on how we construct identities in the digital age." Ryan looked surprised, then pleased. "That's exactly what I was exploring. Most people just see the shiny parts." "I'm Elise Morgan," she said, extending her hand. "Ryan Chen. Thank you for coming tonight. The pleasure's mine. Your reputation preceded you." They fell into easy conversation about his artistic process, Elise's genuine appreciation for his work, creating natural rapport. She was careful to maintain appropriate distance, her interest purely intellectual. "Are you in the art world?" Ryan asked eventually. "Management consulting, actually. But I've always believed art helps us see the world more clearly." She smiled. "Sometimes it reveals truths we miss in our daily lives." Something in her tone made Ryan study her more carefully. "That's an interesting perspective. I'd love to hear more about your next project. Perhaps over coffee sometime? I have a friend who curates corporate collections. Your work might be perfect." The invitation was professional, plausibly innocent, and Ryan found himself agreeing. They exchanged contact information just as Judith called him away to meet an important collector. As Elise watched him leave, she felt a twinge of guilt. Ryan seemed decent, thoughtful, a man who deserved more than the betrayal he was experiencing. But she reminded herself that her plan wasn't about hurting anyone. It was about truth, however uncomfortable. She left the gallery without buying anything, the first piece of her strategy now in place. "You seem distracted," David commented 3 days later, looking up from his laptop at the kitchen island. Sunday mornings had once been their time to reconnect over coffee and the newspaper, a ritual that had grown increasingly rare. Elise poured more coffee before answering. "I met an interesting artist the other night. I'm thinking of commissioning something for the office." "Since when are you into art?" David asked, his tone lightly teasing but with an undercurrent of dismissal that Elise now recognized had been present for years. "People change." "David, sometimes right before our eyes." She maintained eye contact until he looked away, returning to his screen. "What's his name?" "Maybe I know his work. Ryan Chen, up-and-coming mixed media artist. Actually, I'm meeting him for coffee tomorrow to discuss possibilities." David's fingers paused imperceptibly over his keyboard, a reaction so subtle that Elise would have missed it if she hadn't been watching for it. "Sounds nice," he said neutrally. Elise smiled behind her coffee cup. "I thought so too." The coffee shop near Ryan's studio offered the perfect blend of privacy and public setting. Elise arrived first, selecting a corner table that allowed her to see the entrance. Ryan appeared precisely on time, dressed in paint-spattered jeans and a simple button-down shirt. His creative dishevelment contrasted sharply with David's perpetual polish. "Thanks for meeting me," Elise said as he sat down. "I've been thinking about your work since the exhibition." They ordered and spent the first 20 minutes discussing a potential commission, Elise's cover story that doubled as genuine interest. As their conversation deepened, she guided it toward personal terrain. "Do you find it difficult balancing artistic integrity with commercial success?" she asked. Ryan considered the question. "The struggle isn't really between art and commerce. It's between authenticity and performance. Pretending to be something you're not is exhausting." "I understand that completely," Elise said, recognition flashing between them. "My husband is an architect. Creative field, different challenges, but I see the same tension." "Your husband is an architect?" Ryan's interest noticeably increased. Elise nodded. "David Morgan. Morgan plus Associates. They specialize in sustainable commercial spaces. Ryan set down his coffee cup too quickly, spilling a few drops on the table. Morgan Plus Associates. They're designing the new West Side Arts Complex. That's right, Elise confirmed, watching him carefully. It's his current obsession. Ryan absently wiped the spilled coffee with a napkin, his expression shifting. My wife's marketing firm is handling that project. Vanessa Chen. She might know your husband. The moment hung between them, a bridge neither was ready to cross. Small world, Elise said softly. David mentioned they're working with an excellent marketing team. Ryan's laugh held no humor. I'm sure they're working very closely. The subtext was unmistakable. Their eyes met in silent acknowledgement, two people standing at the edge of a painful truth. Elise reached for her phone. I just had an idea. David's been working weekends lately, but he's actually free this Friday evening. We've been talking about trying that new restaurant on Abbot Kinney. Would you and Vanessa like to join us? Ryan stared at her, clearly processing multiple layers of possibility. You want us to have dinner? The four of us? Why not? Elise's expression remained pleasantly neutral. I'd love to meet Vanessa, and I think you and David would get along. He's always complaining that he doesn't meet enough creative people. After a long pause, Ryan nodded slowly. I think that would be very illuminating. Excellent. I'll have David make the reservation. Friday at 8? As they finalized details, both recognized they had just agreed to orchestrate their own reckoning. Dinner with the marketing woman and her husband? David repeated that evening, his casual tone belied by the tension in his shoulders. Why? Elise continued preparing their salad, slicing cucumber with methodical precision. Ryan Chen is her husband, the artist I told you about. We got talking about connections, and it turns out she works on your project. Seemed like a natural dinner invitation. I'm not sure that's a good idea, mixing business with pleasure. Isn't that exactly what you've been doing, David? The question hung in the kitchen like smoke. David looked at her sharply, but Elise merely raised an eyebrow. Waiting, I'll make the reservation, he finally said, leaving the room with his phone. Elise set down the knife and braced herself against the counter, breathing deeply. There was no turning back now. The restaurant buzzed with Friday night energy, ambient lighting, clinking glasses, and the low hum of conversation creating a deceptive sense of normalcy. Elise arrived with David, who had grown increasingly agitated as the evening approached. Remind me of his name again? David asked as they were led to their table. Ryan Chen, Vanessa's husband, the artist. Right. They were seated first, David positioning himself to face the door, his eyes darting nervously whenever new patrons entered. Elise watched him, cataloging his anxious tells. The adjustment of his watch, the unnecessary straightening of silverware. They're here, she said quietly, as Ryan and Vanessa approached their table. The moment of recognition played out exactly as Elise had anticipated. Vanessa froze momentarily upon seeing David, her professional composure cracking before she forced a smile. David stood too quickly, knocking his knee against the table and causing the water glasses to wobble. Ryan observed it all with the careful attention of someone confirming a long-held suspicion. David. Elise, so lovely to meet you both, Vanessa recovered smoothly, extending her hand. She was stunning in person, sleek black hair, immaculate makeup, radiating a polished confidence that made her affair with David suddenly more comprehensible to Elise. David Morgan, David said stiffly, shaking her hand with awkward formality, as though they were indeed meeting for the first time. And this is my wife, Elise. Vanessa Chen, she replied, turning to Elise with an overly bright smile. Ryan has told me so much about your interest in his work. Has he? Elise responded pleasantly. How wonderful that you two can actually talk about your days. Communication is so important in a marriage. The barb landed softly but unmistakably. Vanessa's smile faltered. Ryan extended his hand to David. Ryan Chen, I understand you're the architectural genius behind the arts complex. I wouldn't say genius, David murmured, clearly uncomfortable with Ryan's direct gaze. Don't be modest. Vanessa interjected. David's vision for the project is revolutionary. We've been working very closely to capture that in the marketing materials. Very closely, Elise echoed, raising her water glass in a small toast. They sat down, an uneasy quartet launching into the performance of a normal dinner. Wine was ordered, menus consulted, safe topics introduced. On the surface, they were two professional couples enjoying an evening out. Beneath ran currents of recognition, guilt, anger, and anticipation. Ryan directed most of his conversation toward David, asking pointed questions about his creative process, his inspirations, his work schedule. Each query seemed innocent yet carried subtle weight. Those late-night breakthroughs must be exciting, Ryan commented. Vanessa often comes home past midnight, buzzing with creative energy from your project meetings. David coughed into his napkin. The design process can be demanding, I can imagine, Ryan said, his eyes never leaving David's face. Meanwhile, Elise engaged Vanessa in conversation about her career path, expressing genuine interest that gradually lowered the woman's defenses. What drew you to marketing originally? Elise asked as their entrees arrived. The psychology of it, Vanessa admitted. Understanding what people really want versus what they say they want. That's fascinating. The gap between public face and private desire. Vanessa studied Elise carefully. Exactly. Most people wear masks. The interesting question is why? Protection, perhaps, Elise suggested. Or because they want incompatible things. Like what? Like security and passion. Truth and comfort. Having everything without losing anything. The conversation around them had quieted. Both men were listening now. Sometimes people just make mistakes, David offered suddenly. They don't set out to hurt anyone. Intent doesn't negate impact, Ryan countered, swirling his wine. A bullet kills whether you meant to pull the trigger or not. The tension at the table had become palpable. A server approaching with dessert menus sensed it and retreated. This is a lovely restaurant, Vanessa attempted, desperately reaching for normalcy. Have you been here before, Elise? Never, Elise replied. But I'm familiar with the chef's other establishment. Bellini's? I was there recently. Alone. The risotto is exceptional. David's fork clattered against his plate. Are you all right, darling? Elise asked innocently. Fine, he muttered, reaching for his water with an unsteady hand. Ryan set down his wine glass deliberately. I think we should address the elephant in the room. Ryan, Vanessa warned, her composure cracking. No, I think Mr. Chen is right, Elise said calmly. We've all been performing all evening. It's exhausting, isn't it? The pretense. What exactly are you suggesting? David asked, his voice tight. I'm not suggesting anything, Elise replied. I'm stating a fact. You and Vanessa have been having an affair for 4 months. Ryan suspects it. I know it for certain. The words landed like stones in still water, ripples of shock expanding outward. That's ridiculous, Vanessa protested weakly. Is it? Ryan challenged. You haven't been home before midnight in weeks. Your stories don't add up. You shower the moment you walk in the door. And you, David, Elise continued calmly, have a distinctive cologne that I noticed missing from its usual place several times. The same scent I detected on restaurant receipts in your jacket pockets. You went through my pockets? David asked incredulously. You betrayed our marriage, Elise countered. Are we really comparing violations here? Vanessa's carefully constructed facade crumbled. This is insane. You orchestrated this dinner to what? Publicly humiliate us? No, Elise replied. I arranged this dinner because Ryan deserves to know the truth. As did I, you knew. David asked Ryan. I suspected, Ryan answered. Elise just confirmed it by introducing us. Why? Vanessa asked Elise, genuine confusion in her voice. Why not just confront David privately? Why this elaborate setup? Elise considered the question, looking at each of them in turn. Because I wanted to see. See what? David demanded. How you look together. How you interact. Whether what you have is worth what you've destroyed. She turned to Ryan. And I thought you deserved the same opportunity. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. I should hate you, Ryan said finally. looking directly at David. That would be the appropriate response, wouldn't it? David couldn't meet his gaze. I suppose so. But hatred requires energy I don't have anymore. Ryan's voice was tired but clear. What I feel is curiosity. About what? Vanessa asked warily. About why my wife was drawn to you. What you offer that I don't. Ryan's honesty was startling. I've been wondering for months what I'm missing. What fundamental flaw makes me insufficient? The raw vulnerability silenced them all. It's not you, David said eventually, surprising everyone, including himself. It's not about what you lack. Sometimes people connect for reasons that have nothing to do with what's missing at home. That's a convenient rationalization, Elise observed. It's the truth. Vanessa insisted, finding her voice again. Ryan, I love you. What happened with David was complicated. Complicated, Ryan repeated flatly. 4 months of lies is what you call complicated. What do we do now? David asked, looking at Elise. She regarded him steadily. That depends on what you want. Both of you. Her gaze shifted between David and Vanessa. The question hung in the air between them, unanswered. The restaurant had nearly emptied, their table the last occupied in their section. Their server had tactfully brought the check without being asked. Sensing the intensity of their conversation, I should take you home, David said to Elise after a lengthy silence. I drove separately, she replied. I wasn't sure how the evening would end. Vanessa looked at Ryan. And you? I took a ride share. Didn't trust myself to drive afterward. The pragmatic admissions broke some of the tension. I'll drive you, Vanessa offered tentatively. Ryan shook his head. I don't think that's a good idea right now. Another uncomfortable pause descended. I can give you a ride, David offered, surprising everyone. Ryan studied him for a long moment. Why would you do that? Because it's late, and this situation is partly my fault. Partly? Elise raised an eyebrow. Largely, David amended. Predominantly, Ryan considered, then nodded. All right, are you serious? Vanessa asked incredulously. You're going to leave with him? It's just a ride, Vanessa, Ryan said wearily. Something you've apparently been getting for months. David winced at the barb. I'll take you home, Elise told Vanessa, her calm voice a counterpoint to the emotional chaos. You hate me, Vanessa stated flatly. I don't know you well enough to hate you, Elise replied. And it's not safe for you to drive upset. The bill was paid, and they moved outside in their unexpected pairings. Betrayers separated. The betrayed in control. Text me when you get home, David said to Elise, a habit from their better days. She nodded, surprised by the familiar request amid so much broken trust. As they parted ways in the parking lot, Elise caught Ryan's eye. Something passed between them, not attraction or conspiracy, but recognition. Two people navigating the same storm, finding unexpected strength in honesty. The drive to Vanessa's Silver Lake home was initially silent, both women lost in their thoughts as the city lights blurred past. Why are you being kind to me? Vanessa finally asked, her voice small. Elise kept her eyes on the road. I'm not sure I'd call it kindness. Then what? Revenge? Making me squirm? No, Elise sighed. Maybe I'm just tired of the scenario society expects. The wronged wife screaming at the other woman, throwing things, demanding explanations. What do you want instead? Understanding, I suppose. Not justification. There isn't any, but context. She glanced briefly at Vanessa. Was it worth it? The risk? The deception? Vanessa looked out the window. In the moment, it felt worth everything. Now, she trailed off. Ryan is a good man. Better than I deserve. So was David once, Elise said. Or I thought he was. He talks about you, you know. Not just the obligatory guilty mentions. Real things. Admiration. That almost makes it worse. They fell silent again until Elise pulled up to a modern duplex. This is you? Vanessa nodded. Ryan's studio is in the converted garage. She made no move to exit the car. What happens now, Elise? I don't know. That's the honest answer. Elise turned to look at her directly. Marriages end? Some survive. We all have choices to make. You orchestrated this whole thing. You must have had an endgame in mind. I wanted truth. Everything beyond that is unscripted, Vanessa studied her. You're not what I expected. Neither are you, Elise admitted. I thought I'd hate the faceless woman from the restaurant. But you're just human. Flawed like all of us. Vanessa reached for the door handle, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I believe you are. Whether that's enough remains to be seen. Vanessa stepped out into the night. Thank you for the ride. Elise waited until Vanessa entered the house before driving away, her mind turning to David and Ryan, wondering what truths they were exchanging. David's Tesla hummed quietly as they navigated downtown streets, the silence between them less hostile than contemplative. She planned this meticulously, David finally said. That's so... Elise, you sound almost proud, Ryan observed. David considered this. I am in a way. Disturbed, exposed, guilty, but yes, impressed too. She could have burned everything down with one phone call. Why didn't she? Because Elise has always valued truth over comfort. Even when it hurts. Ryan looked out at the passing buildings. Your office is in the Arts District, right? Near my studio. David nodded. How did you know? I make it my business to know things about my wife's interests. The pointed comment hung between them. I never meant to hurt anyone, David said quietly. Especially not you. I didn't know you. That's the problem with affairs, Ryan replied. The collateral damage is always to strangers. They drove in silence for several blocks. What drew you to her? Ryan asked suddenly. David's hands tightened on the wheel. Do you really want to hear this? I wouldn't ask if I didn't, David exhaled slowly. She reminded me of who I used to be, before mortgages and expectations and playing it safe. Vanessa sees beauty in unconventional places. She challenges assumptions. She challenges vows. Apparently, that's fair. They turned onto a residential street lined with converted industrial buildings. The blue door on the right, Ryan directed. David pulled over but kept the engine running. For what it's worth, she loves you. That was clear tonight. Love and loyalty aren't the same thing. No, David agreed. They're not. Ryan made no move to exit. I keep wondering where I failed. You didn't, David said firmly. This wasn't about you. That's what everyone says, but it's never true. Affairs happen in context, David turned to face him. Vanessa and I connected over a shared dissatisfaction, but not with you or Elise specifically. With parts of ourselves we'd set aside. It was selfish, not a reflection on either of you. Ryan considered this. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? A villain. A smooth-talking predator. Sorry to disappoint, David said with unexpected self-deprecation. Ryan actually laughed, a short, surprised sound. The strangest part is that under different circumstances, we might have been friends. We still could be, David suggested, then immediately backtracked. That's ridiculous. Forget I said that. But Ryan was studying him thoughtfully. It's not, actually. Ridiculous, I mean. This situation is already beyond conventional responses. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. Just acknowledging possibilities. They sat in surprisingly comfortable silence. I should go, Ryan finally said. Ryan? David hesitated. Thank you for not punching me in the face. I would have deserved it. Violence solves nothing, Ryan replied. Besides, I'd hate to damage those architect hands. I've seen your work. It's extraordinary. The compliment, unexpected and sincere, hung between them. Your art is remarkable too, David said. I looked it up after Elise mentioned you. Something shifted in the car's atmosphere. Not forgiveness exactly, but the possibility of something beyond resentment. Ryan opened the door. Good night, David. Good night. As David drove away, he found himself wondering about roads not taken and connections never explored. 3 weeks passed. A period of uncomfortable transition for all involved. Elise moved into their guest room, maintaining civil but distant interactions with David. They existed in a state of suspended animation, neither actively pursuing divorce nor working toward reconciliation. We need to talk about what happens next, David said one evening. Finding Elise on their patio with a glass of wine, she gestured to the empty chair across from her. I'm listening, David sat down heavily. I've been seeing a therapist. Good for you. I'm not saying that to earn points. I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. Have you figured it out? Her tone was neutral, neither encouraging nor dismissive. Partly. I think I've been afraid for a long time. Of what? Of being ordinary. Of reaching 40 and realizing I've become predictable, safe. He looked out at the darkening sky. You've always been so self-contained, Elise, so certain of who you are. That's not entirely true, she admitted. I just process internally, I know. And I admire that about you. He hesitated. The affair wasn't about Vanessa specifically. It was about feeling seen in a new way, desired, not just accepted. You could have talked to me. Would you have heard me? Really heard me? The question made Elise pause. I don't know, she answered honestly. Maybe not. They sat with that uncomfortable truth. I ended it completely, David said. Weeks ago, actually. Before the dinner. Why? Because it felt hollow. Exciting but empty. He looked directly at her. I want to try again, Elise. With you. Differently this time. She studied him, searching for authenticity. I can't give you an answer tonight. I understand. I just wanted you to know where I stand. As he rose to leave her alone with her thoughts, Elise asked, Have you spoken to him? David paused. Ryan? Yes, actually. We had coffee last week. This surprised her. Why? It started as an apology, turned into something else. Like what? David considered how to explain. A conversation between two men who should hate each other but don't. It was unexpected. Elise nodded slowly, thinking of her own surprising connection with Vanessa, with whom she'd also met once, a strange lunch filled with painful honesty and reluctant understanding. Everything is upside down, she observed. Maybe that's not entirely bad. David suggested before leaving her alone with the night sky and her unresolved feelings. 2 months after the fateful dinner, the four of them gathered again, not at a restaurant but at an art gallery featuring Ryan's new exhibition. They arrived separately but navigated the space with awareness of each other. Like planets in carefully recalibrated orbits, Elise stood before Ryan's central piece, a striking installation of shattered glass and copper wire forming a pattern that changed depending on viewing angle. What do you think? Ryan asked, joining her. It's beautiful, she replied honestly, more hopeful than your previous work. I'm in a different place now. Their eyes met in understanding. Ryan had moved out of the home he'd shared with Vanessa, taking a small apartment above his studio. Not a permanent separation, they'd explained to curious friends, but a necessary space for reflection. And David? Ryan asked carefully. We're talking more than we have in years, Elise said. Really talking. It's painful and exhausting and clarifying. Are you staying together? I don't know yet. But whatever happens, it will be an active choice, not inertia. She studied the artwork again. And you and Vanessa? Similar journey, different path, he replied. We're seeing a counselor, unpacking years of unspoken expectations. Across the gallery, David and Vanessa stood in awkward conversation. Their affair transformed into something more complex than passion or betrayal. A catalyst that had forced 4 lives into uncomfortable growth. I never expected this outcome, Elise admitted. When I planned that dinner, I thought I wanted justice or revenge. What do you want now? Ryan asked. She considered this carefully. Authenticity, I think. In whatever form it takes. They were joined by David, who approached with cautious respect. The show is fantastic, Ryan. Thank you. Ryan accepted the compliment without resentment. I have something to show you both, actually. A new commission. He led them to a smaller room where a piece hung in solitary display. A complex work of fractured mirrors and delicate metal framework. As viewers moved before it, their reflections shifted and combined in unexpected ways. It's called Perfect Arrangement, Ryan explained. Inspired by recent events. Elise and David stood side by side, watching their broken reflections merge and separate with each slight movement. "It's about perspective," Ryan continued. "How the same elements can form entirely different patterns depending on where you stand." Vanessa entered the room, maintaining distance but connected to their shared experience. The four of them regarded the artwork and each other, their conventional narratives shattered, making space for something new to emerge. "What happens next?" David asked quietly, the question directed at everyone and no one. "I don't know," Ryan answered honestly, "but whatever it is, it will be real." As they stood together in that gallery, surrounded by fragments reflecting unexpected light, each recognized that the aftermath of betrayal had yielded something none of them could have predicted. Not reconciliation exactly, but a kind of hard-won clarity. The perfect arrangement they had each imagined for their lives had been irreparably altered. Yet in its place stood the possibility of something authentic, relationships built on truth rather than illusion, connections forged in the fire of painful honesty. Elise caught her fragmented reflection in Ryan's artwork and saw not a victim or a schemer, but a woman who had refused the expected script. Whatever came next, reconciliation with David, a new beginning alone, or something not yet imagined, would be her genuine choice. She felt David's hand brush against hers tentatively. After a moment's hesitation, she allowed her fingers to meet his, not in forgiveness or promise, but in acknowledgement of the complex truth they now shared. Behind them, Ryan and Vanessa stood apart, yet connected by the invisible threads of their history. None of their paths forward would be simple or predictable. But as the four of them moved through the gallery that evening, navigating the changed landscape of their intertwined lives, each recognized that in the ruins of what had been destroyed lay the raw materials for building something true. Not perfect, but real, and in that recognition was a kind of grace none of them had anticipated.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.